Hey everybody, welcome to the show. It is September 19th, and I'm doing a pivot. Yesterday we talked about the criminals that surround Trump. Here's the deal. I am not handling the P. Diddy news. I am not handling what Trump said about women yesterday. I am not handling what happened to Giselle Pellico in France. I'm not handling what happened to the women in Georgia very well. Not at all. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. I'm not handling this well. I am so tired of men just thinking women are just more property. Just let me explain. When the trial, when it turned out it was this that my dad and Charlene's murder was connected to a bunch of murders in Southern California, that was the first time I was gobsmacked, right? Because that was the first time I'd heard. That was 20 years after my dad and Charlene were murdered. I heard 20 years later, I heard serial killer. The first time in my life, I heard serial killer as who might have been responsible. That was a big shock because seriously, I tell everybody, serial killers are like 0.01% of killers. It just doesn't happen, right? But then when I found out a couple of years later, I'll never forget being in the car and hearing it come on KGO radio, and I'm getting goosebumps. I'm getting goosebumps right now. I get goosebumps every time I tell the story because I'm in the car driving home from work and I hear a story come on the radio. KGO was a great station back then. And the story was about a series of rapes in Northern California that were tied to a series of murders in Southern California. And that's when I found out that what happened in Northern California was connected with what happened in Southern California. And what we had on our hands, DNA guilty only, no suspect. We had a DNA guilty serial rapist and murderer responsible for more than 50 rapes, responsible for more than 15 murders. It was off the charts all over California. I believe all in 16 jurisdictions. But all of that, when I met the women, and I need to write about this, but I got to tell you, writing a book is so hard when it's about your family, and then your mom dies in April, and then it's even more hard. So I've been trying, but it's really hard to write about. And here's one of the reasons why. So when we finally were starting to get the guy got arrested and all these things are happening, when I first met the women, I met amazing women that were roughly my age, right? I mean, I was 18, but a lot of the victims were a little bit older than me. I was 18 in 1980 when it happened, but then a lot of the victims that had been raped were older and younger. So we're all kind of about the same age. And I didn't want to know really what happened to them. I knew why they were there. I didn't need to know the details of their story. And there's books, believe me. There's the handbook for our murder that's huge, and it has every case, everything, all the rapes, everything. It has a dossier, or a not a dossier, kind of a synopsis of every case. And it's huge. It's a big book. This book has been amazing. I should be giving you a plug for it because it's so good. Maybe I'll remember to put the link in the blog. Anyway, I didn't want to know everybody's stories, but when I had to go to sentencing, this was when he decided to take a plea, and we were sitting in the ballroom at Sac State. So you have to understand, sorry, this isn't even about the podcast, but I just need you to know like this experience and how massive it was, because it goes to the scale of some of this horrific behavior that's happening. The scale is unbelievable, right? That's what I can't get past. It's not one woman, it's not two women, it's women, multiple. So I get to Sac State, and that's my old alma mater. Got my master's at Sac State. I happen to love Sac State. Great commuter school, great school. And that's where my pragmatic professors were. Love Sac State. But they'd built a new ballroom since I'd been there. So it's down kind of in the MU, down where the offices are and all student government and that sort of stuff. This ballroom is massive. And we had to have the sentencing in the ballroom. I may not be sentencing. I'm sorry. There's one step, I think, before sentencing. It's essentially when they read all the charges. That's what happened for one whole day in early summer in some year, 2021, maybe 2020. I think maybe 2020. It was during the pandemic. We all had masks on. That's why we were at the ballroom, because we all had to be 6 feet apart. So you came with your pods of people. I came by myself because I didn't have any people. Just kind of a characteristic of this story for me, but that's a different story. Anyway, we all were in our pods of sixes, and so I was by myself, but we were spread out in a giant ballroom, and I had to sit there for 8 hours and listen for the first time ever, because I had avoided it like the plague, what he had done to the women that were now my friends. And you can't get that off of you. I'm gonna try not to cry, but I went home and I knew I needed to shower, right? That's like the first thing. Like I just needed to shower. But the thing is, the showering can't do it because the filth is inside your mind. What you have heard someone do to the women that you care about, to people who are now your friends, and listen to this. And then, of course, I had to hear what he did, unfortunately, in much more detail than I'd ever heard about what he did to my dad and Charlene, which was really, really hard. And which is why I need to say that this is a crisis time. I can't, at my age, at 62 years old, where I have a daughter and I have a son-in-law. Well, we're not married yet, but he might as well be my son-in-law, right? I can't sit here and watch this keep happening to women and girls. I can't watch Elon Musk tell Taylor Swift, who is one of the most successful women we've ever known, that he's going to put a baby in her. She didn't ask him to put a baby in her. In fact, I think after she got done vomiting, the idea that men think they have something we want, I got to tell you, it makes me ill. And I'm, it's funny because first thing people go, oh, she's a lesbian. This is not about penises or genitals. This is about being a good person or a bad person. It's so simple. It's about having integrity, character, and respect for women, or it's not. And what we're seeing as late as yesterday, when Donald Trump said she's ahead and she's a woman, and he's thinking Black woman on top of it. But sorry, get the tears off my face because, of course, I'm just a crier. Stuff tears me up. But the thing is that to think that he's so gobsmacked because a woman's beating him, I've had enough. But my question is, why are certain men so effing hateful? What is it about? They can't just be, they can't, they don't naturally want to be with us. They want to have sexual power over us, but they don't want to be with us as people. They want to hang out with us. Those are the good guys. The good guys. They're people we're hanging out with, the people we spend time with because we want to, not because we have to, right? Those are the good guys. And a lot of women got good husbands. And I wish I would have gotten one. I would have really loved a partner who was down to live life the way my style, and I down to live life his style, like where you have that mutuality and then you have your independence and you have that mutuality and you have your independence. Good, healthy relationship. I would have been so down for that. But the men I met were all power mongers, and there's no way after living with my dad I was going to be under the thumb of another man. So let's go into this. Violence against women is both pervasive and, unfortunately, it's profitable. If we look at the cases right now, we have in France, this man is selling his wife's drugged body. No, I'm sorry, there was no money, right? This was just for shits and giggles, except he did actually have something going on where he was publishing this stuff. So that is also one of the most horrendous things you can do, is take someone's body image in some state of sexual distress and put that on the web, including nakedness. That's just appalling. But okay, so we have this case in France where apparently no men there have any character or souls. Like, that's how much it was going, with 50 men who just knew that she was knocked out. Like, they didn't even come in and go, wait a minute, this isn't swinging. This is ridiculous. I saw the best video on I saw the best video on TikTok that was like, what's going on right now? This isn't about your kink. This is about consent. Everything's about consent. And if you don't have consent, back off. But the fact that you think consent is a pain in your ass, that's where we have the issue. All good men know consent is required. They just do. You want to be kinky? You want to smear your butt with peanut butter, which is what the woman said? You can smear your butt with peanut butter if there's consent. Anyway, okay, so then we get this P. Diddy crap that everybody knew about. And yet we all just maintained it. We let it go on. All the people surrounding him, because they were getting paid. And I'm going to tell you, I wish there was a way that when you got paid from crime, that money burned a hole in your soul. I wish it just hurt. I wish any ill-gotten gains actually caused pain, because maybe that's the aversion that needs to happen for people who profit off of other people's vulnerabilities. I cannot stand it. But there's a whole bunch of people that need to go down with Mr. Diddy, just like they should have gone down with Mr. Epstein. And then, of course, we have the women dying in Georgia because they couldn't get the medical help they need, because men have decided women's bodies are less important than the babies they're gestating. Just grasp that. You could have a woman who's a full-fledged doctor and has studied and invested all this in their own education so that they could provide service to Americans. And if they're need a D&C because their baby miscarried or they want an abortion, we're going to let them die. All that training, all that investment, everything. That is devalued over the life of a fetus that we have no idea what it's going to turn out to be. And I can promise you, based on how the Republicans have set up supporting those fetuses, I'm sorry, the live births, there's no support for them. I'm super worried about this, but let's just keep going. So, okay, so we know Donald despises women. The Georgia women have died because the men there think that, women shouldn't be allowed to have abortions. The little tiny cells inside of them are much more important. The promise of a cell is much more important than the actual performance of a real live human being. So experts are warning during this dangerous time for women that social, political, and cultural systems are being used to control us and our bodies and limit our rights. And there is a growing trend where men in power, politicians, celebrities, or even average citizens, it's just that they feel that they have power, are using the power to oppress women. And these actions are often justified by outdated moral or religious beliefs that put women in second place. So here we go. I'm going to take you into this now. It's going to be a little bit hard for me because I've got to do slides and camera, but I can do all this. I know I can. So let me take you in a little bit about I already blew through my first slides. I was going to tell you that Giselle, so Giselle, who was raped by over 50 men who did not want to have her trial as a Jane Doe, which is the same thing that happened in our trial. Our women, the women who were rape victims, I was already outed because a murder is in the paper, and that was already public. Now, all three of us kids' names were in the paper because of a murder. But in the case of this rape, usually rape victims go by Jane Doe because they're protected. They're protected. Their identity is protected. But we're flipping that. Narrative. And this is really important. And this takes such courage. And every woman who's done this, I commend you because I know it's hard. It's really hard because people will say things to you that are cruel and mean and hurt. But women are starting to put their names out there when they're pursuing rape cases, and that's great. So she's not a Jane Doe, and good on Giselle. Of course, I mentioned Sean Combs, who is so disgusting. It's like looking at him and looking at Donald Trump and a few others. It's actually, you have a visceral, sickening reaction. So yes, go read what Sean's been doing if you don't know. But I'm really disgusted with all of you who did know and let all these people get hurt. What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? Amber Thurman being the worst poster child ever for being murdered, death by medical care, as she's the one who died, who was trying to get an abortion so she could raise her 6-year-old child because, she had values and character and knew that her 6-year-old child was the priority. But she's gone now. Just gone. And then, of course, you can bait this man so easily, and Kamala did. He's so easy. He's so predictable when it comes to women. And just start listening because he's angry at Kamala. He's angry at you for wanting to have rights over your own body. He's angry at everybody. And so, and the way he treats women is despicable. He said, what did he say? Oh God, the way he said it, he goes, oh yeah, that woman, I wouldn't have raped her. She's not my type. How is that even a sentence? How is that even a sentence without him being incarcerated while he says it? So I got to the bottom of things. Here's the deal. I'm looking at this situation and I'm like, what is really going on? What are these men so afraid of? And so I decided to go in and really tear it down. And the reason I'm doing this is that first, good men need to hear this. And I have a blog coming out tomorrow that's going to be for the good men, the opposite of these fears. I'm going to give you the way to be an empowered male, not a scaredy pants. How did I botch scaredy pants? Okay, I want to tell you how to do this. So tomorrow we'll have empowered males. Today we're going to have baby men. And these are what the baby men are afraid of. And yeah, I'm being really condescending because I'm sorry, but my dad and my stepmother were murdered. And my brother found them. And my brother didn't turn into a dick. You have every ability to not be a dick. And so if you are a man baby, as I'm going to describe here, and you can't figure out a way to honor the woman in your life, with respect and an equal footing in your relationship, you are a man baby. There's just no other excuse. You are cognitively unable to understand something different than some troglodyte Neanderthal. Oh, I'm sorry, using big words. Than some caveman approach to being a man. Let's talk about the patriarchy. Women want control over their own lives, whether their careers, their education, their reproductive rights. It is disrupting the traditional male hierarchy that has long existed, and men who have grown up in this system might feel threatened by women's independence, even though it doesn't threaten them, because we independent women don't care what you're doing as an independent man. That's kind of been the bane of our existence. We've had to not care unless you're actually harming us. So you're afraid you're going to, if you're a man, you're afraid you're going to lose control and power. Imagine a family where a wife gets a promotion and earns more than her husband. Smart husband would be thrilled. He might feel anxious about losing his primary breadwinner decision maker role. And in this scenario, the husband fears that his authority in the family will be challenged, leading to power struggles because she actually has some autonomy and the ability and agency over the money coming into the family. Holy crap. The erosion of traditional gender roles. God forbid we get rid of tradition, which is only there because that's what we've always done, right? The worst excuse for anything. Well, that's the way we've always done it. A man who believes a woman's place is in the home may feel threatened if his wife decides to pursue a full-time career or any career at all. In fact, it's so funny. I'm watching old reruns of sitcoms to find out why my view of the world is so screwed up. If you watch Everybody Loves Raymond, and just save your comments because I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm picking like the most male shows to really watch how all the stereotypes flew in. And I'm frankly shocked at how many there are. But if you watch a show like Raymond, the gender, when his wife wants to get a job, oh, and it's just a part-time job, all hell breaks loose. Like she's coming unhinged, right? She wants to get a job. If you watch Tim the Toolman Taylor on Home Improvement, Jill doesn't even hardly get to talk about having a job. She's made fun of. So this gender role, these men want to control their women by not letting them have jobs. Because once a woman has a job, then the next thing happens, she becomes woke. And once a woman becomes woke, she's going to want like fairness. And she's going to want a man to maybe, I don't know, help out at home, in the home they own together, in the family they've built together. She might actually want him to have some vested interest in that. And then there's the economic competition of financial threat. This is all under just patriarchy, mind you. They're afraid a man might feel anxious and his female colleagues are advancing more quickly than he is. Oh my God, I think women can't be smarter than me. Yeah, they can. I'm going to venture that I'm probably smarter than a lot of men. I bet you are too. Women have a way of having great common sense, a certain kind of resilience. Our brains tend to connect things, and actually it's not just our brains. I think it really has a lot to do with how we have to function, but our right and left brains talk to each other more often. So we have more synapse connections. So we're likely to hook content together. Things that we've heard, data is likely to be more connected in our brains. We're not kind of the one, lift rock. No, we would be like, let's figure out how to make a tool to lift the rock. And why are we lifting the rock anyway? Are we sure that's the right rock to lift? That's us. That sounds familiar, right? Okay. So the next thing is so that's all under the patriarchy. The next thing is women are gaining political and social power. And this, of course, is a big deal because men are really afraid, as women take these key roles in civil rights and reproductive rights that threaten male-dominated positions in political systems. The fear of losing political influence is huge for them. Now, I need to hone in because we're really talking about white, maybe Christian nationalists. So white nationalists would be the part without the Jesus. The white Christian nationalists, the part where they take the Jesus and like mutate the crap out of it to fit their assertions and their philosophy and their point of view. So you have white nationalists and white Christian nationalists, but they're afraid of losing their political influence, as they should be. We're at 59.7 last census, 59.7 white. And of that, of course, half are women. So the men are really at about 30%, which is got to be terrifying to lose all that power. So this is why this is why I believe Trump and Elon and Thiel, these guys who really, really hate women, they want their crypto to work for them because they need to get out of here. They're not going to be able to work in a world. Think again about who I'm saying. Elon, Peter Thiel, and Trump. They're like, if there's a MAGA white, I think they're MAGA white. Maybe we need to have a hashtag for MAGA white. But those guys are MAGA white, and that world is not going to last a lot longer. So they're scared, and that's why they want crypto, because they can take their money and go play somewhere else, and you won't even know how it works. You won't know where they're spending it, what they're doing with it, how they're using it, because crypto can't be audited. It's invisible. It's actually almost, it's so fake it hurts, but that's where the boys are. So they're going to lose their political influence. They're going to be marginalized, and they've never been marginalized. Imagine for all of us who have been marginalized, and when marginalized just means we get sidelined, we're like not as important. It's the kind of thing we have to do all the time as regular humans. You go through your day and you go, oh man, I was going to go pick up some more of the whatchamacallit while it's on sale. And quickly in your mind, you go, that's not as important. Just marginalize that decision. Okay. That's a really elementary way to look at it, but that's what you did. You did that. So that's what they do. They do it now. We get marginalized. The white men are really afraid they're going to get marginalized. And the thing is, they are, because they're not the most important people at the party anymore. They're just another people at the party, but they're not the most important people at the party who are in charge and bossing everybody around. And I think I'm watching JD Vance right now. I think that's probably one of the most interesting things that he's doing, is that he knows he's lying about the immigrants in Ohio. They are there legally, but he refuses to say that. That's how you marginalize people. You take your white power, which he has a huge platform right now, and you just say something that you want everybody to believe is true, whether it's true or not. So yes, the fear of reversal of the power dynamics and the marginalization is a big issue for these. You got to think about it. It's Mitch McConnell, it's Mike Johnson, it's Matt Gaetz, it's in some weird ways Marge Green, who presents a little male, and Lauren Boebert, who presents as really over-sexualized female. These people are so caught up in gender and their weird rules that they're twisted. Tommy Tuberville, all these guys, they're really messed up, and they're afraid because this reversal of the power dynamic is happening. And if you just watch some of the testimony going on in some of the committees, it was Corey. No, it wasn't Corey Shipley. Was it? Anyway, you're seeing that the Democrats have finally, it's like they got their juice back, and they're finally knocking down and reversing the power dynamic, which is great, because it's about time women get to be heard, and women and people of color get to be heard, and Native Americans get to be heard, and everybody else who's been marginalized gets to be heard. And that's really a good thing for democracy. All right, so what's the next thing? So now we've talked about their social and political power. We have the right to body autonomy, and they don't want us to have it. And this one really kills me, because I'm like, what is the big effing deal? We know how to make sure that we can survive economically. And if the baby can be here, we're going to have the baby. And if the baby can't be here, we're not going to have the baby. We might put it up for adoption, but that's a super personal decision. You got to feel really good about knowing your offspring's out there in the world. That's a thing you've got to figure out for yourself. So I'm not going to put that on anybody, because it's complicated. And there are feelings, expenses, and regrets involved with all of them. And to think that men can just decide because, well, here's why. They're afraid they're going to lose control over the family structure. So imagine a couple whose wife wants to delay having children so she can focus on her career. Well, the husband expects her to become a mother right now. They got married. Let's have babies. You don't want to ever do that to your wife, by the way, because having babies before you're ready is the way to absolutely screw up your life. That's different from a surprise kid that you're taking in stride and you have that kind of resilience. That's very different. I'm talking about when you're not economically ready, emotionally ready, your relationship's not ready. You've got to figure out finances. Your parents can't support you. You don't have any extended family or friends. There's a whole thing. As a single mom by choice, I had a whole infrastructure running around here. And I told my daughter, you got to go by every person's different rules. Sorry, deal with it. Because I knew that's what's going to happen when she grows up. Deal with all the different rules. And she did. She's very resilient. She's very good about that. I have to say, that is one thing that she says I did okay. So they're afraid the minute you talk about going to get an abortion, they're afraid they're going to lose the family structure. And what would they do without the rules, right? They're free. This one's crazy to me. They're afraid of a diminished legacy. I didn't even understand men's minds work like this. And I don't know why, because one of the things that was really funny about going to a sperm bank is that I made, as one would, I made friends with the executive director because Chatty Cathy over here talks to everybody. And I made friends with the executive director, and I was like, I think it's interesting that men choose to donate sperm because it's, as a woman, my eggs matter to me, like every one of them and where they are and who they're going to turn into and all that. Like, it's a very personal thing. It's my DNA. It's my history. It's everything that my people have been before me, right? It's like it all comes through and it gets passed on. And Barbara Boy, who was running the sperm bank at the time, said, you would be surprised how many men come here they think they're genetically superior and they want to pass on their genes. Now, I saw those descriptions in the catalog. Y'all ain't genetically superior. You have a hot mess of shit just like us. Your bodies are broken. Your histories are a mess. You have neurodivergence, all kinds of stuff. But the idea that you want a legacy, that a legacy matters, and a legacy is really progeny. And I put my brand on them. It's branding. I guess it's just boil it down to branding. So the fear of a diminished legacy means that men have this compulsion to pass on their genes. And I call bullshit. I understand that's a biological imperative millions of years ago. It's not a biological imperative now. It's just not. So get over it. You need to stop. And women want legacy too. And now we have the internet, so everybody has a legacy, whether you like it or not. And then, of course, there's this anxiety they have to deal with over their declining norms. Maybe this is why some men drink so much. I don't know. But apparently, in culturally conservative families, there's a lot of anxiety happening. So this is an anxiety calming thing. You just do this with your hand and you rub your heart. And it's a way. My friend taught me this. She's an anxiety coach. Just rub the anxiety away by rubbing your hand over your heart in little small circles. But they have anxiety over the declining traditional norms, like we had over the norm of being able to get an abortion. And when the wife opts for choices like abortion or contraception, they think it's eroding societal values. But those would be traditional values. And those aren't necessarily the right values if making sure your child can be fed, clothed, and taken care of medically are high for you and you have no way to deliver those resources. Those are traditional values too. And then, of course, women have a secret power that I don't know why, but men seem to now have this ability to not adapt well. I don't know. They have the opposite ability. Women can do this cultural change. I think it has a lot to do with how we solve problems, right? Which is just tends to be rather pragmatically. I mean, we're strategic when we know we have to solve a longer problem, but often in women's lives are about like to figure out this and do that. And like I said, your brain's connecting across both hemispheres. We can adapt to change. We just have the ability to adapt to change. And that would include gender role change. Well, there's some women, I guess they're called turfs. I don't know what a turf is, but I know they're not good. How's that? And I don't know why you'd want to be a turf. I can't imagine aspiring to turfdom, but okay. But most women who've have any agency at all, and maybe these women don't have a lot of agency. We're going to take J.K. Rowling and just set her over there because she's just weird. But most women can embrace change and can adapt to change. I'm not talking about how fast you adapt. I'm just talking about your ability to adapt. And so what the men are afraid of with cultural change is they're going to lose their social dominance, right? A man who's raised to believe leadership is a male role, when he sees women becoming CEOs and doctors and political leaders, he might feel like his dominance is slipping away. Donald Trump. Fear of irrelevance. I think this is so key. Out of everything I've said, everything else feels like bullshit. But this one, fear of irrelevance. And this is, I think, legit because men haven't had to be relevant. If you think about this, and now, oh, okay, sorry, let me be clear. White men, white men been have not had to be relevant. They're fiercely competitive with each other. They make up games and ways to create competition and hierarchy that women we don't naturally go there. Well, I'm competitive as hell, but I don't think of how to make everything a competition. That's not how I rule my life. I'm more signed up for competition, like when I'm ready to enter a competition, but I don't compete all the time. In fact, I bench myself against other women, but not competitively, more like benchmarking. Like, what are they doing that I haven't done? What did I do that they didn't do? I kind of do some of that because I think it's kind of healthy to be able to see how you exist in the world and have a good sense of who you are relative to your peers and your community and those things. But men are so afraid of being irrelevant and they don't have a way to be relevant. So, as a woman enters public life, a man might feel that his contributions are no longer valued. A man who prides himself on being a protector might feel less needed in a world where women can be financially and socially self supported. This is so interesting because men don't have to be irrelevant. White men, you don't have to be. You've just not pursued delivering things that are meaningful. Now, there are exceptions. Like I immediately go to some of these men like Jamie Raskin and um, Sheldon Whitehouse and Sherrod Brown and John Tester. These are real people who care about how they are in the world. And so I feel like they don't have that same sense of fear of being irrelevant because they know who they are. So if you have a man who's potentially afraid of being irrelevant, you need to help him. You don't need to help him. Sorry, I want to strike that. This is not a podcast about what women have to do to help men. Absolutely, positively not. In fact, I went through this 3 times rereading it because I'm like, this is not our job to fix. It's our job to know, and it's our job to be prepared for, and it's our job to challenge and address. I think we need to confront some of this, absolutely, because as I open this with all the horrors that are going on against women, we have to be willing to confront this. And one thing we can do that I think is not hard, and it works for everyone, including my cats, is to positively reinforce good behavior. That's free. We can all do that. And that's for anybody. That's regardless of who people are. Positively reinforce good behavior. Give it a like, shout out, acknowledge, say it out loud. Because when you do that, when you acknowledge good behavior, you're showing the men who don't know how to behave well that this is good behavior. You're turning that person, that male that's acting really great, into a model. And a lot of these guys need models. They don't need Donald Trump as their role model. They don't need Sean Combs as their role model. They don't need the man in France who helped facilitate rape because the rapists were just a little too scared to go all the way unless they had an adult helping them. Yeah, we don't need all that. We need to call out the good behavior. So that's why I'm a Kelsey fan, right? Because Jason and Travis call out good behavior and they act with good behavior. They are not threatened by women. They are partners with women. And I hate that they have to be my call out right now, but the Kelseys are such good examples of guys. I saw Jason got called out and it was brutal. I mean, the things this person was saying about Jason, call him a fool, fat fool, all kinds of stuff. And the thing is, I loved Jason because he did the thing. First of all, he's always standing up for his family. They come first. His girls first. His wife and girls are first. Second of all, he said, yeah, I might be a goof sometimes. I'm enjoying my life. So yeah, I might be a goof. And sometimes I'm a drunk goof and I know I can be a jackass, but I try really hard not to. I mean, he goes back to his values and his parents raised him right or something. He was in the right community. Something happened well in that family where those men were raised, but alpha males, people were raised to be respectful of women. That's the kind of role models we need. And that's what we need to do as women is like, show our guys. That's what we're talking about. Okay. And the last thing is that Women really want to be economically independent. And of course, for us, economic independence does a lot of good things, right? It lets us get out of abusive relationships. It lets us have the power to sue somebody. It lets us have the power to stand up for ourselves. It lets us always be able to walk away if we got to walk away, regardless of the situation. I haven't left marriages because I've never been married, but I have walked out of jobs, and it's terrifying. I didn't like it, but I saved. I was a big saver. So, I mean, I watched my mom be destitute and held and kept destitute. Here, my dad was a lawyer, and he was making, I guess, decent money. He must have been, because he was doing all those stupid investments, but he paid my mom $150 a month per child. Now it's in the 70s, but I'm going to tell you that was nothing. That's how men keep control over the women. And he did keep control over my mom. He told my mom also she could not leave the county with us, that he would sue her and take the children away. And he had that over her head the whole time we were minors. He wanted my brothers, and he wanted them badly, but not badly enough because I know his wife didn't want them. But that was the threat my mom lived with. That, and once she got economic independence, in fact, I'll never forget when she bought her first house. I think I was about 14 years old. And my mom, she worked so hard because my dad, she didn't have extra. My dad didn't help with a down payment or anything. My mom saved and saved and saved. And if you know, she was getting $450 a month for 3 kids, she was saving like crazy. And so she bought her first house. We were in rentals prior to that. We had owned homes when we were married to my dad, but once the divorce hit, they both went into rentals. And so I was so proud of her. She did 2 things that amazed me as a woman post-divorce. She bought her first house, which was, I just get so proud of her, because my mom was an introvert. My mom was a late 50s woman. There was nothing about her that had the kick-assness of women today. She bought her first house, and she got her college degree. Oh my God, I'm back to crying. Holy crap. I miss her. I've been missing her a lot. Anyway, that's what women can do. That's what women can do. And I'm so tired of men using the threat of not letting us be economically dependent as a way to keep us in check. So men are afraid they're going to lose control in personal relationships if women get money. They are. That's a legitimate fear. They are going to lose control, because if they're controlling the relationship now with money, that's going to change. Men are afraid of being rejected, and they have insecurity around that. They think their only worth comes through providing for their families. And they don't understand that providing for a family financially is just one aspect of being a man. And I don't know when that got lost. That's something I see in the Kelseys for sure. They seem to understand being a man is a lot more than bringing home a paycheck. I can bring home a paycheck, but I can't restore. I can't. I watch my neighbor when Evan comes out with the boys, and he's teaching them how to ride bikes right now. The joy they have from that time with their dad, spending that time with one-on-one time with them. And that's actually what the Kelseys talk about when you watch them, the documentary about how they were raised. Their dad was always there for them. It wasn't about making money. He wasn't seen as the provider. Now I'm sniffing because I cried. Okay. He wasn't just the provider. He was the guy who saw the promise in his children and was there for them all the time. And obviously, clearly there for his wife, and she for them. And that's a really good, mutually supportive, mutually codependent, interdependent relationship. Not codependent. Codependent's bad. Interdependent is good, meaning you come together and you have your interests. You come together and you have your interests. That's a healthy relationship. So they're afraid that if they don't bring home a paycheck, that's all they're good for. And that's stinking thinking. That we can go change. That is something they're going to need to want to change, but that we can change. And then, of course, the threat to their masculine identity. A man who ties his self-worth to being a breadwinner is going to have an identity crisis when he thinks that his role as provider is gone. This is legit. It's real. I hate to say it, but it's true. And we need to be respectful. Just know that that could be a real vulnerability. And all of us have vulnerabilities. I have a vulnerability because I'm a fat woman, right? So I'm vulnerable. We all have many other reasons too, but that was just an easy one. We're all vulnerable. So it's okay. Men can be vulnerable too. And I do think we should be patient and take all that with a grain of salt as we're working with these folks. So What does that mean? Okay, it means I can, number one, stop sharing, which I have to figure out how to do. But what this really means is that there's work for us to do. In these fears, the work that we need to do. Sorry, I'm trying to get out of stopping how to not share, but I'll never figure it out. So not a problem. Okay, so what I do want to tell you is that understanding these fears can help us better see what is happening behind the curtain. So we know there's these Machiavellian plans going on in politics. Project 2025. JD Vance literally hates women. I don't know what his deal is, but he just hates us. We need to understand what's holding this together. It's really about their fear of losing power. And I don't want to fall back into the role of holding the hands of man babies. That's not going to work. If they're being a baby, that's not your job to fix it. If they're trying to change and it's hard, that's fair. I think all of us need help when we're trying to change. Trying to change is a good thing. And so, and it might be hard. You might need counseling. You might need to bring in some friends who do a good job of it so your husband or boyfriend or friend can see what it might look like to be a different kind of guy. That's trying to change. That's the awesomest thing. And guys that are trying to change aren't going to try to hurt us. That's probably the biggest thing we should know. If they're trying to change, they don't want to hurt us. They have our backs. Okay, tomorrow I'll do the opposite. Why men are afraid, how men can stop being afraid, and what they can do differently. And I really appreciate you listening today. I'm still figuring out a little bit of my technical mechanics, but I'm doing better. All right, thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.